Chapter 2209. The past life 134. Mu Qingya was at fault, and Mu Yi was also at fault. Since the ninth emperor was not his real daughter and refused to follow him home, why did he keep disturbing her? If he did not pester the ninth emperor, Mu Qingya would not have done such a thing out of jealousy. Go away. Dongfang Yu came forward, blocking Mu Yi's line of sight. She frowned, and her voice carried a hint of impatience. My master doesn't want to see you right now. Mu Yi froze. The look of despair in his eyes grew intense as he raised his sad eyes. Are you so heartless that you won't give me a single chance? The ninth emperor looked down at him. I gave you a chance, but it was you who didn't take it seriously. She had given these people so many opportunities. However, these people did not take it seriously, so it had nothing to do with her. Mu Yi trembled and finally stood up. His eyes were filled with sadness, and he stumbled slightly. The open gash on his forehead with blood dripping was somewhat shocking to the eyes. But, even so, it still could not soften the ninth emperor's heart. Her face was cold, expressionless. However, Dongfang Yu understood that the ninth emperor might not have returned because of the Mu family. Maybe Mu Yi's was the reason for her disappointment. Yet, the ninth emperor did not say it, and she would never ask. Mu Yi, the ninth emperor's voice was faint. She never seemed to call him father once since she returned this time. What happened to Mu Qingya today is all because of you. You indulged her, trusted her, doted on her, making her so arrogant. She can't accept anyone better than her, and she even used these people to her benefit. But one day, once she feels that someone has stolen something from her, be it fame, wealth, or love, she will do anything that she can to destroy that person. It was you guys who gave her pride, and she wouldn't allow anyone to crush her pride. Therefore, this has befallen her today because of you guys, me for extra chapters. Mu Yi trembled, and he closed his eyes sorrowfully. He told himself that what little Nine said was not necessarily true. But, what was in front of him was indeed the truth. Qingya thought little Nine would replace her, so she was angry, resentful, and had finally made an irreparable mistake. But no matter what, she is my daughter. I will do anything for her. He opened his eyes and said sadly. That is your business. It has nothing to do with me. I don't want to see you here again after this. Little Nine's voice was cold and her face expressionless. Dongfang Yu, next time, you just kick him out directly. There is no need to talk to him. It's such a waste to say anything to people like him. After saying that, the ninth emperor turned away and walked into the courtyard, leaving only the cold view of her back to Mu Yi. Mu Yi wanted to stop the ninth emperor, but Dongfang Yu had already closed the courtyard gate, completely blocking him. Mu Yi, Dongfang Yu looked at Mu Yi coldly. Where were you when my master suffered out there and was being pursued? Chapter 2210. The Past Life 135. Mu Yi stiffened. Isn't little Nine the ninth emperor? She should be living a good life. How can she still be chased after? I don't care what you did back then that caused my master to run away. But in the future, don't come to bother her again. After saying that, Dongfang Yu did not look at him again and simply turned to the people in front of him. You guys keep saying that one should be filial and repay your grievances with virtue. It's simply ridiculous. When Mu Qingya plotted to kill innocent people because of her selfishness and blamed my master, why didn't anyone say that they should repay grievances with virtue? When Mu Yi had to give her up without asking, why didn't anyone complain about that? Since this group of people can't do it, why should she be asked to repay her grievances with virtue and be filial to someone who doesn't deserve her filial piety? For some people, when the knife is not on her neck, she does not know the pain. But once it's on her neck, she's more ruthless than anyone else. Indeed. For some people, when the knife was no longer on their neck, they became arrogant and accused others because, they did not know the pain. After all, the pain was on someone else's body. When they were in pain, they would be more ruthless than anyone else. The crowd was somewhat dumbfounded and did not know what to say. Earlier, among the crowd, someone deliberately triggered the crowd to hate on Little Nine to force her to forgive the Moo family. But now, they all fell silent. If someone had treated them like this, would they still repay the grievances with virtue? Could they forgive the person who wanted to harm them? Everyone was quiet. Even the most ruthless people who screamed from the crowd earlier did not dare to speak after seeing Dongfang Ye's eyes. Dongfang Yut said nothing more. She simply turned and slammed the courtyard gate fiercely shut as if it could keep the rumors out. Mu Yi stood in the light breeze, frozen. He then turned around slowly and walked away. Gradually, the sad figure disappeared in the crowd. The Emperor's son-in-law manor. Mu Yi walked into the manor and saw the old lady of the Mu family approaching him with a glow in her eyes. How did it go? Is Little Nine willing to come back? Me for extra chapters. Old Lady Mu had always called her a wild child before, but it became Little Nine. Mu Yi slowly came back to his senses. He raised his head stiffly, looked at the old lady in front of him, and shook his head. Old Lady Mu spat and scolded, useless. Why can't you even invite her back? You are her father, can't there be no way to make her come home? This is her home. If she doesn't come back, where else can she go? She is Little Nine of the Mu family. This is her home. Her home, these two words echoed in Mu Yi's mind. He suddenly raised his head again and stared at old Lady Mu. If it were not for her mother's words, Little Nine would have returned a long time ago, and there would not have been so many bad things happening to them. If it were not for her mother's fondness of Mu Qingya, his daughter would not have become like this, let alone become a prisoner. Chapter 22:11, The Past Life 136. Therefore, it's all her fault. Rage flashed in his eyes, and he suddenly lunged toward old Lady Mu. The force was so strong that it made the old lady stumble and almost fell to the ground. What are you doing? Old Lady Mu's eyes were filled with anger, and she shouted angrily. She felt like her bones were about to break, and when she raised her head, she happened to meet Mu Yi's angry gaze. At this moment, his eyes, just like a lion, made people scared. As if in the next moment, he would pounce on people and eat them alive. This was the first time old Lady Mu saw Mu Yi with such a look. Before Mu Yi, her dead father, also often looked at her in such a way. More than that, it was a nightmare that she could not forget about for many years. Mu Yi, I am your mother. She panicked a little, seemingly worried. Why? Why do you want to harm me? Why do you want to harm Qingya? He was angry, hissing. If it weren't for you, Qingya wouldn't have made such a mistake. It is all your fault. You are the sinner who harmed the people of the Emperor's son-in-law's manor, and you are the one who caused Little Nine to ignore me. It was all old Lady Mu's fault. He threw aside filial piety. He only knew that it was his mother who had caused him so much misery. So, in the end, his voice was hoarse, and his eyes were full of anger. Old Lady Mu staggered up and shouted angrily, Crazy. You are crazy. You and your father are the same. Both are stupid. I have worked so hard for you for so many years, and now you do this to me. Indeed, all these years, it was his mother who raised him with so much hardship. But, he felt pity for his daughter. Without old Lady Mu's coaxing, how could Qingya have committed such a mistake? She used to be a kind and simple girl. I finally understand why my father chose someone else and not you. He sneered. Me for extra chapters. Because. If I were him, I wouldn't live with a woman like you for the rest of my life. His eyes filled with deep pain. If the person in front of him were not his mother, he would have done more to her. he then clenched his fists tightly. For a moment, old Lady Mu froze, not expecting her son, whom she had raised since childhood, to say these things. At that moment, her whole body was about to explode with anger, and she rushed toward Mu Yi like crazy, biting his arm fiercely. Mu Yi yelped in pain. He then raised his hand and pushed Old Lady Mu away fiercely. Old Lady Mu's head hit the side of the bed, and she immediately fainted. Fortunately, a servant came out and hurriedly helped the old lady. The courtyard fell silent. Mu Yi lifted his sleeve and found that the old lady had bitten him so hard that her teeth had sunk into his flesh, making him bleed and leaving half of his arm bruised. He viciously sucked in a breath of cold air, and his gaze turned even more furious. Guard, from now on, only gives coarse food to Old Lady Mu. Burn all her new clothes and make her wear old clothes. Do not allow any servant to serve her. Before, Old Lady Mu was living such a luxurious life. But now, he would just let her live how they lived before they were in the manor. Chapter 22:12 The Past Life 137 Old Lady Mu's face changed dramatically. If she really could not live such a luxurious life, then what was the point of staying here? Mu Yi, I'm your mother. You can't do this to me. She rushed toward him, but before she could touch Mu Yi's coat, he pushed her away. Perhaps, this time Mu Yi was disappointed in Old Lady Mu and was no longer willing to take care of her. The old lady fell to the floor as she desperately looked at Mu Yi leave. No servant came to help her. All the servants stood aside, and no one paid attention to Old Lady Mu. Old Lady Mu had always been arrogant and bullied these servants. Now that Old Lady Mu was in trouble, no one looked at her more. After all, this was all her fault and could not be blamed on anyone. You, a bunch of killers, treating an old lady like this. Mu Yi, you ungrateful child. Have you forgotten how hard I raised you? Now you have grown up and are abandoning me. Your mother. You unfilial son. Sooner or later, you will be struck by lightning and die. Old Lady Mu's voice echoed through the sky, causing people outside to look in that direction with shock. Only when Old Lady Mu had no more strength to roar did she quiet down, wiping the tears from the corners of her eyes, and her voice was filled with despair. Mu Yi. It's fine if you disown me. I can find someone else to raise me in the future. You are such an unfilial son. You are not destined to have a good end. People like you deserve to live alone. Her tone was spiteful, as if Mu Yi was not her son but an enemy. You and your dead father are the same. You all deserve to die. Mu Yi hid behind the door, listened to the cursing outside, and closed his eyes slowly. His gaze was filled with pain. Ungrateful son, ha ha ha. Mu Yi closed his eyes and let his tears fall. His pale face was filled with grief. Regret and guilt scraped his heart like a knife, causing his heart to tremble even more. He opened his eyes half a second later. No matter what, he had to save Qingya. Little Nine did not need to be saved, as there was the Emperor. Me for extra chapters. He did not believe that the Emperor could be so ruthless. As long as he pleaded, perhaps, Qingya would still have a chance to live. Mu Yi turned around, opened the door of the room, and walked out again. He did not know when Old Lady Mu had disappeared. No wonder the courtyard had suddenly become quiet. He now had no desire to care about this old lady and hurriedly walked out. Unfortunately, Mu Yi was not even able to enter as those guards stopped him. Sorry, Master D doesn't want to see anybody today. Mu Yi's eyes panicked, and his face turned pale. Please inform him and say that I have an urgent matter with him. There was a time when everyone in Fengyun Kingdom needed to beg to meet him. Now, it was him who was bitterly begging this group of people. Such humiliation, which he had never had before, now embarrassed him, but he could do nothing because Qingya was still waiting for him to save her life. For Qingya's sake, he was willing to put down his dignity. No matter what, he must save her. Chapter 22:13, The Past Life 138. However, in the end, these people still did not open the gate, leaving Mu Yi alone standing in the cold wind. From dawn until dark, he waited for him even though he had not been able to meet Di Ming. Mu Yi was determined this time. If he could not meet Master Di, then he would rather starve to death here, never leave. Old Lady Mu knew where the 9th Emperor lived, so she quickly rushed toward the 9th Emperor's residence. The 9th Emperor had not been able to clear her mind for a few days, but then, on the outside of the house, came Old Lady Mu's heartbreaking voice again. "Little Nine, I know you are at home. I am your grandmother and have come to bring you home today. It was all Mu Qingya's fault before this. She said bad things about you in front of me. That's why I did not want you to come home, but I know the truth now, so please come out to see me, even if just one glance." She sounded sorrowful and tried to make her voice sound sincere. However, the 9th Emperor said nothing and did not come out. But suddenly, a powerful force rushed out to Old Lady Mu and knocked her out. The old lattice body could not withstand the force and fell to the ground. The others sneered and looked at Old Lady Mu mockingly. Who did not know the kind person this Old Lady Mu was? She had always been a scoundrel, had never done a good thing, and often looked for trouble. Even if a child accidentally bumped into her, she would still punish that child endlessly. Until she was given money for her to stop. So now, seeing Old Lady Mu acting like this in front of the 9th Emperor, they could not help but sneer. Some people laughed out loud and were also not afraid of this old lady looking for them later to settle accounts. Even Mu Yi was defeated by Little Nine, not to mention Old Lady Mu. Old Lady Mu stood up with a blue face. She fiercely glared at those who sneered and once again walked toward the gate. "Little Nine, I am your grandmother. You, get out here." This time, along with that cold voice, there was once again a force that rushed toward her and she fell again. This old lady was used to being arrogant, so when had she ever suffered such aggression? At first, she wanted to come and talk nicely, but she did not expect Little Nine to be so ignorant, which also made her furious. "Little Nine, you bastard. What do you think is so great about you? I am your grandmother. I came to take you home with good intentions, and this is how you treat your grandmother. Come back with me immediately. Otherwise, I won't let you go." Little Nine was powerful, but she was still her granddaughter. Since she was her granddaughter, she should listen to her. Me for extra chapters. A sarcastic laugh nearby made Old Lady Mu more furious as she glared at that person. "What are you laughing at? Old Lady Mu, you probably still don't understand, do you?" The one who spoke was a young man, and it was also him who had just laughed at Old Lady Mu. This young man was somewhat kind. So, he explained to Old Lady Mu patiently, "Little Nine is not your biological granddaughter. Little Nine has already said that Mu Yi forcibly married her mother even though she was pregnant and lost her memory. She gave birth to a daughter who was not his. Now you still have the nerve to come and cause trouble? If Little Nine were the bloodline of the Mu family, then these people would have come and mocked her. To them, filial piety was the most important in this world. But now, Mu Yi was not her father. The Mu family had always mistreated Little Nine. Then, it was expected for her to act like this. God would not care much about such idle matters. Chapter 22:14, The Past Life 139-inch Impossible. Old Lady Moog shook her head, stood up from the ground, and took a few steps back while shaking her head. "It's impossible. Little Nine is from our Mu family. I don't believe it, even if Little Nine was not her granddaughter, she had to make little Nine listen to her. A cold light flashed in old Lady Mu's eyes. No matter what, she had to get this little Nine for herself and not let her go. Only by following little Nine could she have a great life, and no one would ever dare to offend her again. Not only in Fengyan Kingdom, but the entire mainland would also have to respect her. Even Princess Qingluo could not give her this life, so, thinking about it, old Lady Mu felt that even if it was not her heir, it was not harmful to accept her in the family. Moreover, the Mu family had raised her for so many years. Even a raised dog had feelings for its owner, let alone a man. She should be better than a dog. I tell you, you are all just jealous. Little Nine is my granddaughter, and it will never change. Old Lady Mu continued to hold her head high, not feeling the least bit ashamed of what she just did. She continued to walk forward and said, "Little Nine, you are my granddaughter. Someone must have been jealous and deliberately wanted to make you leave the Mu family. It must be Sima Yan who said this. Isn't Sima Yan just jealous that little Nine is my granddaughter? He deliberately came and told my granddaughter that she's not of the Mu family's bloodline. It's ridiculous. Whether or not it's biological, there's no escaping the fact that little Nine's surname is Mu. Old Lady Mu, you'd better leave. Little Nine can't possibly see you. She just shouted at you to get lost." The people on the side snorted. "Haven't you ever thought about how you treated little Nine before? Didn't you disapprove of her? I remember when little Nine's mother was in the Mu family, she had suffered a lot from you as well." "Oh yes. Back then, it was you who drove little Nine's mother out of the Mu family before she bought a manor here to live in, and as a result, you shamelessly came, wanting this manor again." Old Lady Mu's face turned pale. The things that happened back then were brought up one by one, making her a little embarrassed, but she soon got over it and did not waver no matter what these people said. The old lady was more difficult to deal with than Mu Yi. At least Mu Yi felt some shame, but old Lady Mu could give up everything for the benefit, even her dignity. Therefore, when old Lady Mu saw that little Nine was not paying attention to her, she sat on the steps. Afraid that little Nine would make a move, she sat some distance away to ensure her safety. Me for extra chapters. You guys are just jealous. Little Nine has always been my granddaughter. I used to be blinded by lard. That's why I treated her like this. Now that I've figured it out and understood the situation, I will naturally cherish my granddaughter." This old lady was so shameless that she could even say that she was blinded by lard. There were more and more people around, all pointing at her. Compared to the time when Mu Yi came, everyone was now sneering at old Lady Mu. Mu Yi was gentle, but this old Lady Mu was too disgusting. Everyone in this kingdom hated her. Before, fearing the strength of the Emperor's son-in-law's family, no one dared to do so, but now that the Emperor's son-in-law's family was in trouble, who would still bow to her? The old lady was not punished only because of her age. Chapter 22:15. The Past Life 140-inch Old Lady Mu, you'd better go. After all, you didn't raise her either. Old Lady Mu grunted coldly. She was staying put, not willing to leave, but their glances were unbearable to her. In the imperial prison, Mu Qingya rubbed her arms hard. Her gaze was full of resentment and viciousness. Little Nine. It's all her fault. If it weren't for little Nine, I wouldn't have gotten into this situation. Qingya, Princess Qingluo could not stand the bad condition in prison. She frowned slightly and looked at Mu Qingya. Don't worry. Your father will find a way to get us out. Your father won't leave us alone. We just have to wait. He will come to save us. Mu Qingya sneered. Even if her father wanted to save her, so what? It was impossible to save her. Her grandfather was determined to punish her. Why? Why didn't you tell me what grandfather had warned you about at that time? Mu Qingya turned to look at Princess Qingluo. Her face was expressionless, but there was cruelty in her eyes. Qingluo's throat choked a little. She lowered her head and closed her eyes. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. She did not believe those words at all and did not care much. Who knew that her father was so convinced and would disregard his own family? He even wanted to kill Qingya because of this matter. Qingya was his granddaughter. Until now, this mother and daughter had not thought about what mistakes they had made. One stubbornly blamed all the mistakes on others, thinking it was little Nine's fault, and later thinking it was Qingluo's fault. And the other one stubbornly refused to believe the fact. She felt that the emperor was too stupid and was fooled by little Nine and Sima Yan. Why did you lie to me? Mu Qingjia's eyes were bloodshot as she stared at her fiercely. Why did you lie to me? Why didn't you say all the things that grandfather had said? If her mother had told her earlier, perhaps she would not have used such a stupid method to deal with little Nine. She would only spread the news about little Nine and let her enemies deal with her. After all, the 9th emperor had offended too many people on this mainland, and countless people wanted to kill her. Because of her mother, she was sent to prison, allowing little Nine to be free. Me for extra chapters. The person who deserved to die the most should be little Nine. Qingya, seeing Qingjia's appearance, Qingluo's heart broke. Her face was pale as she stared at Mu Qingya. Mu Qingjia's hair was messy, and her little face was dirty. The clothes she wore were also full of dust and no longer in the glory of the emperor's son-in-law's manner. If you hadn't lied to me, the one who would die should have been little Nine. You deserve to die. Mu Qingjia's eyes were bloodshot, and she gritted her teeth tightly. Why? Why was she suffering here? Why was little Nine able to get away with it? In these few days, she was already going crazy. The prison was definitely not for humans. Moreover, in a few days, she would be beheaded, and it was all their fault that she would be beheaded. Hunger, anger, panic, despair, all of the emotions came up at once, making Mu Qingjia's eyes even redder. She thought of these awful days, having to eat nasty things. She thought of how there was no servant to take care of her and that she could only sleep on this cold ground. Chapter 22:16, The Past Life 141. She thought of the people. How they had slandered her, abused her, and how no one was following her anymore like they once did. These things were unbearable to Mu Qingya, who was once high up in the world and had a strong sense of self-respect. Therefore, she stood up from the ground and stared hard at Qingluo, a flash of angry fire burning her eyes. Suddenly, she lunged at Qingluo, strangled as she gnashed her teeth. It's all your fault. You lied to me. You are the one who caused me to become like this. Since I'm going to die, then you must be buried with me. Ha ha ha. Her two hands firmly strangling Qingluo made it difficult for Qingluo to breathe. She stretched out her hands as she panicked. But she did not try to hit Mu Qingya, not even a little. Qingya was right. It was all her fault. She was the one who caused her daughter's incoming death. So, no matter what Qingya wanted to do, she would no longer resist her and could not let her suffer alone. Qingluo gradually closed her eyes, tears hanging from the corners of her eyes. Qingya was her only daughter. How could she not be heartbroken? The thought of her being beheaded in a few days was even more painful. The pain was more than the pain in her neck. It was unbearable for her. Qingjia's eyes became more bloodshot as if Qingluo in front of her was no longer her mother but an implacable enemy. Bang! Just then, the prison door was pushed open. Two guards rushed in from outside. One of them stepped forward and kicked Mu Qingya out of the way. The air rushed into Qingluo's nostrils, allowing her to catch a few breaths finally. What are you doing? The head guard angrily scolded, You are a prisoner, and you dare to do this in imperial prison. Are you seeking death? Now that Mu Qingya was no longer a noble lady, the guard went forward and kicked Mu Qingya viciously. Qing Luo panicked and went forward to protect Mu Qingya. I am the princess, and she is a noble lady. You can't hit her, or my father will not let you go, me for extra chapters. Princess. Noble lady. The chief guard laughed. The emperor released a mandate that you are no longer of the imperial family. Even if you go out, you are no longer a princess. As for Mu Qingya, one way out for her is to die. The crime she committed is unforgivable. King Luo's body grew stiffer, and she shook her head fiercely. No, father would not be so cruel. As long as Mu Yi can make little Nine forgive Qingya, Qingya will not die. After all, little Nine was Mu Yi's daughter. Mu Yi had done nothing wrong to her, and he always tried to find ways to get her home and make up for it. Therefore, little Nine finally had to listen to Mu Yi and release Qingya. I don't believe what you say. Even though she was already a prisoner, Qing Luo still did not let go of her pride. She raised her head proudly, looked at the guards in front of her, and said, the emperor's son-in-law will find someone to save us. As long as little Nine forgives us, we will be able to get out. I am still the princess. If you treat us like this now, sooner or later, I will make you regret it for the rest of your lives. The guards looked like they had heard some funny joke and laughed louder. He smiled sardonically. You probably don't know. Mu Yi went to little Nine, but he was not even able to enter the gate, and, he paused. Little Nine said, Mu Yi is not her real father. Mu Yi has also admitted it. So, there is no need to scare me. A person who has lost her power wants to make me regret it for the rest of my life. Chapter 22:17. The Past Life 142. Qing Luo froze, staring in disbelief. Little Nine is not Mu Yi's daughter. Impossible. Mu Yi never said anything about this. It's not true. In the past, Qing Luo was hoping that little Nine was not related to the Mu family so that no one would come to the emperor's son-in-law's manor to compete with her for Mu Yi, but now, she desperately hoped that what the guard said was not true. If little Nine was not a member of the Mu family, it was like losing all hope. Qing Luo panicked and stood up from the ground. Mu Yi is little Nine's father. But she is trying to escape, deliberately looking for an excuse. She is his daughter and must obey her father's words. Otherwise, God will not let her go. The guard sneered. Whatever you think, she still can't get out anyway. As for your words, it all depends on the emperor, but, he turned to Mu Qingya, and his expression was stern. Your mother's crime does not send her to death. The emperor did not say anything about it, so she cannot die. If you want to strangle her to death, then you will be seen as committing a crime, which deserves to be beheaded. Beheaded? Mu Qingya's body stiffened. She even started feeling suffocated. The guard left after saying this, locked the gate again, and did not say that Qing Luo should change the cell. Mu Qingya gradually turned her gaze to Qing Luo. She clenched her fists tightly and did her best to restrain her anger. Did you do it on purpose? Did you deliberately want to make a commotion so that those people would know that I wanted to kill you and have them kill me? She gritted her teeth, speaking the word with hatred. I didn't, you did it on purpose. Just now, you deliberately backed me up, but you were pretending. You are no good just like that, little Nine. You both want to harm me. She sounded a little crazy, and there was anger in her eyes. Qing Luo froze. She looked at Mu Qingya in a daze, unable to speak for a moment. Since when did Qingya become like this? Obviously, after entering prison, she seemed like a different person. Qingya was her only daughter. How could she want to harm her, Qingya? That's enough, bitch. Mu Qingya raised her hand, and with one hand, she pushed Qingluo, who wanted to approach her, away. Her eyes were red with anger, and she was like a madman, holding her head tightly and squatting down. Me for extra chapters. You're all bitches. You all want to harm me. I want to leave this place. I don't want to live in this prison with you. I want to leave. She suddenly stood up and rushed toward the gate. She grabbed the iron bars desperately and shook them. Let me out. Let me out immediately. I don't want to live with her. She wants to kill me. She and Little Nine are both evil. Let me out. Qingluo's gaze was dull and stunned as she looked at the mad Mu Qingya. Her heart felt like it was being squeezed by a hand, pounding with pain. Her daughter, her once most proud daughter, was now completely crazy. Why did this happen? Oh. It was all Little Nine's fault. It was because of Little Nine that Qingya had gotten into such a state. Qingluo closed her eyes in grief. She did not want to see Qingya with this crazy look. It hurt her heart just to glance at her. Chapter 22:18. The Past Life 143. Mu Qingya got tired of crying and quieted down. Her eyes were red with monstrously brewing anger. There was also that crazy hideous light. Little Nine owes me a life. She owes me a life. If it weren't for her, I wouldn't be so miserable. I will never let her go. In future lifetimes, I will haunt her. As long as she can reincarnate, no matter where she goes, whose child she becomes, I will haunt her. I, Mu Qingya, swear here that I will never give up unless my soul disappears forever. Otherwise, I will be entangled in life and death. She gritted her teeth fiercely. Qingluo froze, looking at Mu Qingya, and slowly closed her eyes. I will help you. I will help you. She was her mother. How could she not help her? No matter what Mu Qingya had done to her before, she would not resent her. She would only blame Little Nine. It was because of Little Nine that drove her to such a state. It was also because of Little Nine that made her daughter go crazy. Qingluo lowered her gaze, and the hatred in her eyes was also so intense that it seemed like it could destroy both the sky and the earth. At this moment, the ninth emperor still did not know the future of these two lives, this pair of mother and daughter, who swore to haunt her. In the first life, the ninth emperor was the daughter of a single-parent family. Who knew that one day, her father would bring back another woman? This woman also had a son and a daughter. That son was named Feng Jianche, the daughter was Mu Qingya, and that woman was the reincarnation of Princess Qingluo. She could not bear the life in this family, being targeted and framed at every turn, making her want to escape. However, because of Feng Jianche's existence, she was able to hold back. The young man cared for her and loved her in every way. Later, the young man took her away with him and also created a business empire for her. Until her father came to the door, the young man did not forgive them, simply because they brought a lot of harm to the ninth emperor. Later, these people also became very miserable. The ninth emperor's father's company went bankrupt, and the young man did not help him. Her stepmother eloped with someone who turned out to be a gambler. In another life, she was the daughter of Luyun Kingdom's emperor. Qingluo was noble consort Rong, and Mu Qingya became the illegitimate daughter of noble consort Rong. Me for extra chapters. No matter how their identities changed, it had not changed their downfall, which was still miserable. After several lifetimes, they still could not fight the ninth emperor. Today's Mu Qingya still did not know that her reincarnation after this would be miserable. Otherwise, she would no longer have such thoughts. Her life began with pride and love by all but ended up miserably. And yet, it would still hurt. Since she had lost life, no matter how long it took, she would still lose after all. Fate was long predetermined. She was destined to be defeated by the ninth emperor even though she had been reincarnated for 10,000 lives. That was because, from the beginning, the ninth emperor was not bothered by her. A weak person like her did not deserve any attention. Even Feng Ruching from Luyun Kingdom would still not pay too much attention to her, as she was too weak and useless. Chapter 22:19 The Past Life 144-inch Ninth Emperor. The ninth emperor was lying lazily on top of the pavilion when suddenly someone spoke. She raised her gaze to look at the girl standing in front of her. Dongfang Yu smiled. Mu Qingya has been executed today. Oh, the ninth emperor answered faintly as if she was just listening to an insignificant matter. Her face was calm, without any emotion, and her eyes were as bright as before. However, Princess Qingluo is dead. The ninth emperor raised her eyebrows and finally sat up straight. The emperor killed her. No, she was killed by Mu Qingya. Mu Qingya wanted to strangle Qingluo a few days ago, but the guards stopped her. This time no one got there in time so that no one could save her life. Mu Qingya died, and also Qingluo. Who was left? Mu Yi, oh no. There was still old lady Mu. From now on, it was this pair of mother and son who must depend on each other. They kind of did it to themselves. Dongfang Yu smiled. Ninth Emperor, you have never wanted to provoke them, but they still wanted to fight against you. The ninth Emperor laughed. They are just strangers to me. In the future, you do not need to tell me any news about these people, even Mu Yi. I do not want to know. Indeed. To her, these people were irrelevant. What she wanted to do now was just to find out the whereabouts of her mother. Nothing more. Recently, Di Ming has been staying indoors, right? Yes. Mu Yi always goes to him, so he refuses to go out. Since Mu Qingya died, Mu Yi has not been able to see him. It was said that Di Ming was Mu Qingjia's future husband. But she did not know why he was so cold to Mu Qingya. Her death or life all seemed to have nothing to do with him. Come on, let's go out for a walk. It's rare for this place to be so peaceful. The ninth emperor ignored these people, but these people kept coming to her to disturb her. It made her feel as if many flies were flying around her, making her want to get rid of this group of flies immediately. However, the ninth emperor did not go out these days, and it was not to avoid the Mu family. It was because she did not care about them. She was simply lazy. And she did not want to go out. And me for extra chapters. She was waiting for Di Ming to come and meet her again. A cold light flashed in the ninth emperor's eyes as she smirked. No matter what, she had to find her mother's whereabouts. Yes, ninth emperor. Dongfang Yu followed behind the ninth emperor, somewhat puzzled. The ninth emperor had found the cellar and saw the painting. Now, she knew her background. But why did she still not leave? It was as if she was still waiting for something. When the ninth emperor left the manor, they just happened to see Mu Yi again. At this moment, Mu Yi did not have the vigor he had many days ago. His clothes seemed not washed for a long time with dirty and messy hair like a beggar. When he looked up, he saw the ninth emperor walking toward him. He stopped in his tracks. However, the ninth emperor ignored him, walked past him, and did not even look at him. She seemed to be unaware of his existence. Mu Yi clenched his fists tightly, and his heart was hurting. Little Nine was able to save Qingya. Yet, she did not save her. She simply allowed Qingya to be beheaded. Little Nine. Suddenly, Mu Yi called out to the ninth emperor. The ninth emperor stopped in her tracks. She turned to the person behind her, with her snow-colored robe shallowly raised in the wind. Although you are not my daughter, I have always been nice to you. Mu-yi closed his eyes in sorrow. This time, he admitted the true identity of the ninth emperor. It indirectly proved that he also had long known that the ninth emperor was not his biological daughter. When I first met your mother, I was unaware that she was pregnant. I only knew that she had lost her memory and did not remember anything. But back then, I had no intention to leave her. As long as she was willing to stay, not to mention having me raise her daughter, whatever I was asked to do, I was willing to do it. But it was me who was wrong. Mu-yi closed his eyes. It was I who failed to protect her, which made her suffer so much aggravation and also made her suffer from my mother's torture. The ninth emperor pursed her lips and did not speak. It was also because of his kindness in raising her back then that she had never bothered Mu-yi. However, every time these people came to the door, it looked like they were seeking death. Your mother and I were husband and wife, but we had never been like a real couple. He opened his eyes slowly. She had always refused to share a room with me, even though we were married. The ninth emperor was shocked. This was beyond what she thought. Back then, Mu-yi was sincere to her mother, however, her mother did not have the same feelings for him. Mu-yi smiled bitterly. Seeing that the ninth emperor did not speak, he continued, later, your mother left, leaving you behind. What do you think I was supposed to do? For your mother's sake, I adopted you, and in the end, it was you who wanted to leave. The ninth emperor lowered her gaze and laughed. If I didn't leave, I'm afraid I would have been sold by you, right? When she said that, Mu-yi's heart trembled. He then raised his head and looked at the ninth emperor with a look of dismay in his gaze. His voice trembled. You know it all, me for extra chapters. The ninth emperor laughed. I overheard it. So why should I stay? To be sold by you to others as a concubine. Mu-yi's face was pale, clenching his fists. Back then, little Nine was beautiful even at a young age, and many people wanted her despite her age, only that those family members were all commoners. Later, his mother suggested to sell little Nine as a concubine. Back then, the Mu family's status was not high, and it was too difficult to marry his daughter to a good family as an official wife, and finally, they could only make her a concubine. He told his mother back then that he wanted to go back and think about it first. In fact, back then, he was still quite selfish. Little Nine was not his daughter, and his mother knew about it. Later, when his wife was gone, he intended to leave her but was worried that she would starve out there. If she had been sold as a concubine, at least she would have a place and food and might have lived in luxury. However, he rejected his mother's suggestion after 2 days of consideration. He knew the ninth emperor's temper. She would disagree, and if he did so, he would feel apologetic to his late wife. Yet, he did not expect little Nine to have heard these words and left home furiously. Chapter 22-21. The Past Life 146. Back then, Mu-yi lowered his gaze. I refused. So what? The ninth emperor turned to Mu-yi. It was all there and done. There is no need to mention that again. The ninth emperor did not tell Mu-yi that on the very same night, old lady Mu had brought people over to kidnap her, forcibly wanting to sell her as a concubine. So she escaped. That night, she finally understood that the Mu family, who said they wanted to help her, were ruthless. To her, it was useless to talk about this now. From then on, she had no more relationship with the Mu family. Little Nine. How could you bear to watch Chinya die? Mu-yi said painfully. I'm telling you this because I just want you to know that I never did anything to hurt you. I disagreed with my mother back then. Why can't you forgive Chinya this time for the kindness I once gave you while raising you back then? I chose Chinya and the emperor's son-in-law's family that day because you are not my biological daughter. Since you know all that, why do you still hate me? He had given her a life. Was that not enough? Why did he have to give up the emperor's son-in-law's family and Qingya to protect her? After all, Qingya was his only daughter. Why should little Nine resent him for this? The ninth emperor turned around expressionlessly and looked at him. You think I hold resentment against you? She walked toward Mu Yi and inched closer. Her voice carried a questioning tone. Mu Yi, I never hated you. It's just that from then on, the Mu family and I no longer had anything to do with each other. And I already repaid your kindness some years ago. Mu Yi froze and looked at the ninth emperor, somewhat shocked. His voice filled with bewilderment. What do you mean by that? Some years ago, you once went out and were in danger. If I hadn't saved you, you would have died long ago. You said you gave me a life, and then I returned life to you too. We're even now. Some years ago. Mu Yi seemed even more bewildered. He remembered that he had only encountered danger once. That was more than 10 years ago before he married Qing Luo. Back then, he was out and met a spirit beast. He did vaguely see a person come up to scare the spirit beast away and save him. Me for extra chapters. He had lost too much blood and fainted. He then saw Old Lady Mu. Old Lady Mu told him that Princess Qing Luo had brought someone to save him. If it were not for Princess Qing Luo, he would have died long ago. He had never had any feelings for Qing Luo, not then, not now. He thought that he owed Qing Luo too much and naturally had to protect her. The other thing was to respect each other like guests and nothing else. However, it was because of the old lattice words that he had to marry Qing Luo to return the favor of saving his life. But now, little Nine was telling him that she saved him. So, his mother had gone out of her way to deceive him and set him up with Qing Luo. Mu Yi froze. His face grew paler, his body was trembling uncontrollably, and his entire mind was blank as if there was a thunderbolt exploding in his head, buzzing non-stop. And the ninth emperor smiled faintly. I have let her go many times. She does not know repentance and still came up to bug me. I had no choice. So when you wanted me to let her go, there was absolutely no way. Chapter 22:22, The Past Life 147. Mu Yi closed his eyes. All the words that he said to the ninth emperor just now. There was no way to repeat them. And he no longer knew how to face her. What he had always believed in also shattered with this moment, making his heart sink. If you did not leave back then, Mu Yi opened his eyes sorrowfully. Perhaps it would not have turned out like this. The ninth emperor pursed her lips and fell silent. A few seconds later, she turned to Mu Yi. There was a coldness in her eyes. If there was Mu Qingya, I'm afraid the ending would be the same, and it has nothing to do with me leaving or not. And perhaps she would have died much earlier. Mu Yi was shocked. You are blaming your father for marrying another wife back then. You overthink. Old Lady Mu has always been greedy for power. You are destined to marry Qing Luo. With them in, Mu Qingya would have eventually turned out like the person she is today. She smiled faintly. So, as long as Mu Qingya has this kind of nature, sooner or later she will make the same mistakes, and whether I stay in this place or not, it does not matter. All people were born as blank slates and shaped by parents. With the nature of Princess Qing Luo and Old Lady Mu, Mu Qingya would still become so this had nothing to do with whether she left the Mu family or not. The ninth emperor turned around and left without so much as glancing at Mu Yi again. She was a little hungry and just wanted to go to the restaurant to dine. If she stayed too long, she was afraid that even her appetite would disappear. She got Nan Chongfeng to help her keep an eye on Di Ming yesterday, so no one was there to cook for her. She could only come out to eat. Mu Yi looked at the ninth emperor leave and could not come back to his senses for a long time. A few seconds later, he turned around and walked back to the emperor's son-in-law's manor. Although the place was still the emperor's son-in-law's manor, the plaque had long been removed. The guards and servants had also run away, leaving only some people. The whole courtyard looked deserted. Mu Yi walked into the courtyard and saw old lady Mu, who was full of resentment. Me for extra chapters. Old lady Mu rushed toward Mu Yi furiously. Why haven't you ever told me that little Nine is not your child? Mu Yi sneered. You didn't like them, so what makes you think I will tell you? She might end up miserably if I told you that. He knew his mother. Every time he tried to disobey her, she would confront him with the statement that it was not easy to bring him up on her own. In the end, he chose to obey her, and he would end up in such a situation. The only time he did not listen to his mother was to marry Princess Qingluo. Only later, his mother had told him that Princess Qingluo had fought to save her life, and he immediately accepted her. In the end, this turned out to be the biggest joke of all. Ha 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 ha. Mu Yi laughed. Tears flowed from his eyes, and his pale weathered face was filled with despair. Old lady Mu froze for a moment, perhaps not understanding why Mu Yi seemed crazy again. It might be because Mu Qingya was dead. Chapter 22-23, The Past Life 148. It seemed like he was not able to bear it. Old lady Mu continued, It doesn't matter if little Nine is not yours. After all, she was raised by us. If not because of us, she would have starved to death. You must go to little Nine now and make her forgive us. If little Nine can come back, it will benefit us more than Qingluo and her daughter. Mu Yi stopped laughing and looked at old lady Mu incredulously. His gaze was fixed upon her as if he did not believe that old lady Mu could say such words. How come he had never found out before that his mother was so selfish? Qingya had died, but she had not felt the slightest sadness. It was as if she never cared. Qingya was her granddaughter. Now she treated Mu Qingya like what she had done to little Nine back then. Ruthless and heartless. Mother, Qingya is your granddaughter. Your granddaughter. His voice was filled with despair. Even if he had been disappointed in old lady Mu many times before, he had never been as desperate as he was now. His mother. What kind of woman was she? Why did he never realize this? Mu Yi clenched his fists tightly, trembling, and his gaze carried anger. Old lady Mu looked somewhat impatient. It was Qingya's fault. Who had asked them to poison the young lady of Prince Mint's manor and frame little Nine? She deserves to die. Do you expect me to save them? Yes, she deserved to die. But if it weren't for her mother's bad influence on Mu Qingya, his daughter would not commit such a crime. Little Nine was right. Even if she was in the Mu family, there was no way that she would be close to Mu Qingya because of that. On the contrary, it would make Mu Qingya die earlier. However, he did not deserve to say these words. Ha! Mu Yi laughed in a low voice. That laughter was filled with sarcasm and mockery. In the end, he laughed louder and louder, like a crazy man. Back then, you planned to sell little Nine, and little Nine found out about it. That was why she disappeared and never came back. Old lady Mu's body stiffened, and her old face turned pale. Me for extra chapters. No wonder little Nine ignored me. When did she know about this? Back then, you still did not know that little Nine was not my daughter, but you still made such a choice. It is apparent that you are really a ruthless woman. That was why she left and did not return for several years until I was in danger before I married Qingluo. Little Nine passed by and saved me, but you deceived me, saying that it was Qingluo who did it and claimed that she risked her life to save me. All the tragedies that happened in our Mu family are because of you. You are the culprit, and the one who deserves to die is you." He roared, his eyes were bloodshot. Mu-yi was like a lion that had gone crazy. Old Lady Mu's face turned paler. She bit her lip hard, trying to calm her trembling body. "I am your mother. How dare you treat me like this?" No matter what she did, it could not change the fact that she was his mother. But now, he dared to be so rude and dared to tell her to die. "I order you now to go and find little Nine immediately. You must get her back. Otherwise, don't come back here for the rest of your life." Old Lady Mu gritted her teeth, raised her head, and said arrogantly. Chapter 22-24 The Past Life 149 The way Mu-yi looked at Old Lady Mu was as if he was looking at a fool. He did not understand why Old Lady Mu could still say such words after what had happened. Could it be that she still did not understand why he no longer had the face to find little Nine now? "Enough. If you want to find her, then you can go yourself. I will never go again." He turned around and wanted to leave. Old Lady Mu panicked. She knew that if she got Mu-yi to go this time, maybe Mu-yi would not come back in the future, so she rushed and grabbed Mu-yi's hand anxiously. "You are not allowed to go. You must go and find little Nine." Old Lady Mu grabbed Mu-yi's arm tightly. Her face was full of anxiety. Mu-yi fiercely flung his hand, trying to push Old Lady Mu away. However, the resentment in his heart was so strong that he used too much force this time. Her head hit the wall pillar, blood flowed, and she fainted. After hearing the sound, Mu-yi turned and saw the unconscious Old Lady Mu. The blood flowed on the ground, making him stunned. At that moment, an endless fear invaded his heart. Cold sweat flowed down his face as he rushed forward and said anxiously, "Guard. Someone, come here." In an instant, the few remaining guards and servants ran out and rushed to Mu-yi. Mu-yi covered Old Lady Mu's head with his hand tightly, trying to stop the blood. His eyes were filled with panic, and his heart beat fiercely. No matter what, the old lady was still his mother. The mother who gave birth to him and raised him. No matter how much he hated her, he still did not want her to die. Otherwise, he would never forgive himself in this life. The autumn breeze blew gently. The 9th Emperor lay lazily on her pavilion. Just at this time, a figure hurriedly ran over. The 9th Emperor looked up and saw Dongfang Yu in front of her, panting. "9th Emperor, did you know that? Just now, Old Lady Mu died, me for extra chapters." At this moment, the 9th Emperor, who was holding a cup of tea in her hand, just about to drink it, paused for a moment. The news came too suddenly. Old Lady Mu died. How did she die? What's going on? She raised her head to look at Dongfang Yu and asked. Dongfang Yu shrugged. "I'm not too sure. I heard that Mu-yi pushed her, and she accidentally fell and bled to death. The Emperor's son-in-law's manor now is in trouble. The world is indifferent to Mu-yi. He went to beg those physicians, but no one was willing to help him. Princess Qingluo had been punished, and the entire Emperor's son-in-law's manor had been affected by this incident. If it were in the past, many people would rush to treat Mu-yi's mother, but now no one was willing to take care of them. The 9th Emperor felt a little surprised. Old Lady Mu was dying, but Mu-yi did not come to her. This was not quite the same as the old Mu-yi. Mu-yi didn't come to me. Dongfang Yu shook his head. No. I heard that he begged all the physicians in this kingdom, and he also kneeled outside the palace to beg the emperor, but no one helped him. That old Lady Mu has offended many people over the years, so those people want her to disappear immediately. Mu-yi wanted to bring the ashes of old Lady Mu back to the Mu family, but the Mu family refused. Chapter 22-25. The Past Life 150. Sadly, their life had been ruined to this extent. When old Lady Mu took Mu back to the Mu family, those people in the Mu family, although they despised her, also accepted her. They gave her food and clothing, and no one abused her, but there would always be some fighting behind the scenes. Later, Mu Yi became the emperor's son-in-law. After old Lady Mu gained power, she started to bully those in the Mu family. It was acceptable if she did it to those who had mocked her. But even those who had not hurt her also suffered. She felt that everyone in the Mu family owed her. The former head of the Mu family was seriously ill and wanted to ask Princess Qinghua to help him, but old Lady Mu stopped her. She refused and went to the former head of the Mu family and insulted him, causing his death. How could the Mu family forgive her? Therefore, it was expected if the Mu family was not willing to help him now. The 9th emperor was just curious, why did Mu Yi not come to her? Of course, even if Mu Yi came, he might not see her, so it did not matter if he came or not. Has Di Ming made any moves recently? The 9th emperor leaned back and asked. Dongfang shook her head. She thought for a moment and then asked, 9th emperor, is it true that Master Di is related to your mother's disappearance? Yes, the 9th emperor nodded slightly. This kid must know something about my mother, but if I ask him, he might not tell me. If Di Ming wanted to, he would have long said it and would not wait until now. And she did not even need to let Nan Chongfeng keep an eye on him. Speaking of that, Nan Chongfeng recently often went out, making her a little uncomfortable. Dongfang, go to Nan Chongfeng tomorrow and ask him to come back. You replace Nan Chongfeng to watch over Di Ming. The 9th emperor thought about it and was somewhat uneasy. No, you can't go. Get Tian Xian to go. The wolf girl is stronger than you. Dongfang was speechless. Her expression changed dramatically, and she almost cried out. Her pair of eyes full of grief as she stared at the 9th emperor pitifully. Does the 9th emperor dislike me? Actually, I can do this, me for extra chapters. The 9th emperor looked up at Dongfang, thought about it, but still shook her head and said, forget it. With your strength, he will easily find out that someone is watching him. You should just stay at home. Sadness filled Dongfang's heart. It seemed that she had to improve her strength to help the 9th emperor so that the 9th emperor would like her more. Back then, there was no Nan Chongfeng. Everyone in Cloud Mountain was sisters and never fought about this. But now, there was a man involved. Chapter 22-26. The Past Life 151. I'm a little tired. The 9th emperor lazily stretched. She smiled and said, I've asked Tian Xian to continue to keep an eye on Di Ming. If there's any movement on his side, well, go to him. Her eyes were slightly narrowed with a bit of coldness. Back then, her relationship with Di Ming was good, so she hoped that this matter had nothing to do with Di Ming. Otherwise, she was afraid that she could never forgive him in this life. Because of the death of old Lady Mu, Mu Yi's life became miserable all of a sudden. He was left alone in the lively emperor's son-in-law's manor. Therefore, during this period, he did not go to the 9th emperor. Instead, he became a drunkard. He slept and drank all day, hoping that the wine could numb his heart. However, compared to Mu Yi's grief, the 9th emperor had a rare moment of clarity. This kind of clarity was not like before, easily broken by these people. Now everything had changed. These people would no longer bother her. Mu Yi also never came to her again, which made the 9th emperor calm. Meanwhile, a man in a vivid purple stood in the courtyard. He smiled as he looked in Tian Xian's direction. However, no one was there. Soon, he withdrew his gaze and asked, how is the emperor's son-in-law's manner these days? A servant standing behind Master D answered respectfully, Master D, the Emperor's son-in-law's family has all died, except for the Emperor's son-in-law who is still alive. The people of the Emperor's son-in-law's manor were all dead. Something that the people of this city had long waited for. The Emperor's son-in-law's family had indeed left Mu Yi alone. That's good, said Di Ming with a faint smile. I thought that little Nine still cared about Mu Yi. That's why I helped him, but I didn't expect I would make Mu Qingya misunderstand and claim to be my future wife. Mu Yi was little Nine's father. That was he had secretly helped him a lot over the years, and later after the Mu family knew it was him who helped them, Mu Qingya, therefore, thought he liked her and claimed herself as his future wife. Me for extra chapters. Previously, little Nine did not return. He did not care about the outside world and decided to let her go. But now that little Nine was back, of course, he would not allow anyone to control him anymore. The good thing was, Mu Qingya was no longer there. It was like back in the day again. After old Lady Mu died, did Mu Yi ever bother her? Master D, the person behind him said respectfully, Mu Yi has nothing to do besides getting drunk every day, and he has not gone to look for Maiden Mu. Well, Di Ming said indifferently, I don't know what happened, but I know that the current little Nine doesn't like Mu Yi, so if Mu Yi still dares to go to her, there's no need for her to be polite. Unfortunately, he found that out too late, so much so that he let Mu Qingya have an opportunity to take advantage of it. If he had not released Mu Qingya in the first place, Mu Qingya would not have tried to frame little Nine, and it was because of him this incident happened. You can leave now. The person behind him respectfully put his fist to his palm and retreated. Yes, master. Di Ming once again looked at the courtyard not far away. A certain light flashed in his eyes, but he said nothing. Then, he withdrew his gaze, turned, and walked to the backyard. Chapter 22-27, The Past Life 152. Tian Xian hid behind the wall. She somehow felt that Master D had discovered her. Her forehead was covered in a cold sweat, not knowing if it was her illusion or not. This man was much more terrifying than the Ninth Emperor imagined. And very scheming. He sounded like he was deliberately speaking to her so that she could go and tell the Ninth Emperor. Ridiculous. Did he think she would speak for him? Tian Xian sneered. She turned around and continued to hide in the shadows, carefully spying on every move in the courtyard. At this moment, inside the room, the Ninth Emperor frowned. Her beautiful face glowed under the cold moon. She slept very deeply and quietly. The breeze blew at the bed veil that brushed her cheeks. No one saw the painting, which was initially placed on the table, floating in the wind to the candlestick, and was burned by fire. Then, a white light slowly overflowed from the portrait, filling the room again. White fog surrounded the place. She could not see anything, and she looked a little confused. Until, in that white fog, a figure gradually appeared standing in front of her. The Ninth Emperor did not remember how long she had not seen this face. Too long that she thought she had forgotten. However, after seeing that stunning face, she realized that she had never forgotten her. Her appearance had long been deeply imprinted in her mind, so much so that after so many years, she could still see her again in her dreams. Mother, she called gently. She then ambled toward the woman in the white mist, and each step she took was as long as if it had spanned a century. Where have you been? Why had she not come back to see her once all these years? The woman smiled stunningly. Me for extra chapters. Her eyebrows were somewhat similar to the Ninth Emperor. Compared to the Ninth Emperor's domineering aura, this woman seemed more gentle, with a glow in her gaze. Little Nine, I know you have been looking for me, but you do not have to continue to look. Forgive me. Only now can I tell you to stop looking for me. It may be cruel, but I have no way to tell you before I go. I am afraid you might want to follow me. Where are you? Her body trembled as she took one step closer to her. Tell me where you are. I must go to you. No, little Nine. Don't look for me anymore. You've been looking for me for a long time. All these years, I've followed your father. I believe in you. You can live a good life alone. Then, why won't you let me come with you? We can go together. We can go together. She left her behind. No one knew the fear and confusion she felt when she was left behind in this place, and then she fled here alone to find her mother. All these years, she had never given up looking, convincing herself that she would find her mother. And now her mother was telling her that she did not need to look for her anymore. Why? Little Nine, the place where your father and I go is not for you yet. But in the future, we will certainly see each other again. Your father and I just want to go first to pave the way for you. Only then, later, you can come to our side. Little Nine, stop looking. You don't need to continue. We will meet again in the future. Chapter 22-28. The Past Life 153. There was an apparent eagerness in the eyes of the woman before her. Even her voice was a little choked up. Her gaze was sad and sorrowful. No. The Ninth Emperor clenched her fists tightly. Her heart felt like it was being hammered hard. It hurt a little. It's not that I can stop just because you tell me not to look for you. As long as you are still there, I will search through the whole world. I will find you. I will find you. These words shook the woman's heart so hard that the grief in her eyes increased. Then, if I'm not there anymore, impossible. The Ninth Emperor looked somewhat anxious. You left a letter back then, saying that you were going to find someone, and that's why you left. Since you didn't want me to find you, then why did you leave a letter? And you left it in a place where only I could find it. Everyone thought that her mother was dead, and Mui thought the same thing. So, she was the only one who knew that she was still alive. She had just gone to look for someone. When she found that person, she would come back. But why after so many years, she had not come back? Was it just because that person had not been found yet? So, why could she not return for her? The Ninth Emperor trembled as if there was a hand that had viciously torn her heart apart, causing her pain. Yes, I did go to look for someone. The woman in white smiled faintly. And I did find him. So, why didn't you come back? Because he went a little far away. And so did I as I went to look for him. I will never come back. I'm sorry, little Nine. You do not need to look for me because I am no longer in this world. I'm no longer in this world. This sentence made the Ninth Emperor fall into a low valley, froze. The coldness, as if rushing into her heart, made her heart tremble fiercely. She closed her eyes, trying her best to hold back the pain. Her face was pale, and her lips were trembling. No longer in this world. So she meant that she was dead. If she was still alive, why did she not come to her instead of using this method to tell her? If she were still alive, she would not have asked her to stop searching. Me for extra chapters. All these years, no matter how many trials and tribulations she encountered, the Ninth Emperor had always survived. She did not ascend to a god level in one step but had slowly walked forward to get to where she was today only to find her. She could also protect her now. But why, when she already had such an opportunity, could she no longer use it to protect her? She allowed her to be left alone in this cold world. At this instant, the Ninth Emperor felt like the sky was about to collapse. Her body stiffened as she stopped moving, and her gaze fixed upon the gradually blurred face in front of her. Then, why did you not wait for me, even one more glance? I'm sorry, little Nine. If there is a chance in the future, we will definitely see each other again. A chance. The ninth emperor closed her eyes and smiled coldly. After a short while, she opened her eyes. A touch of harshness and dominance flashed in her eyes. I will not wait for this opportunity. It does not matter if you refuse to come to see me. If you are still in this world, I will search every corner to find you. If you are no longer here, I will definitely find the way to you. You can't leave me alone in this place. Chapter 22-29. The past life 154. The woman seemed to want to say something, but her figure had begun to disappear gradually. She stretched out her hand, wanting to grab the ninth emperor, with sadness and reluctance in her gaze. However, she no longer had the chance to grab her and could not even utter a single word. But, looking at the woman who was about to disappear, the ninth emperor panicked. She reached out her hand to grab her. Naively, the woman in front of her disappeared too quickly. She did not have time to wait for her again and disappeared. Inside the room, the ninth emperor opened her eyes abruptly and bounced up from the bed. Her forehead was covered in a cold sweat, and her face was pale. She turned to the table, but she saw that the portrait on the table just now had disappeared, leaving only a burst of ash that had dissipated with the wind. Ninth Emperor. The room's door was suddenly pushed open, and Nan Changfeng's figure was like the wind, instantly reaching out to the ninth emperor, embracing her tightly. He pulled her into his arms, trembling. The ninth emperor gradually calmed down, lowering her gaze to look at the man who was hugging him. Her eyes softened. "Why are you here?" Nan Changfeng lowered his gaze and looked at the girl in his arms. "I just had a dream. I dreamed that you wanted to leave this place." She wanted to leave him. That feeling was too real. So real that his heart was now beating faster, and only when he touched her did his restless heart gradually calm. The ninth emperor did not speak, allowing Nan Changfeng to hold her body. The breeze came in through the window, brushing her hair. At that moment, the ninth emperor's hands and feet were a bit cold, and Nan Changfeng hurriedly covered her hands, but no matter how he warmed her, he still could not warm her cold hands. "Changfeng," the ninth emperor's voice was calm. "Let's go home." Nan Changfeng froze. "You're not looking for her anymore?" "No," the ninth emperor lowered her gaze and smiled. As she said, "We'll meet again in the future." All along, it was just self-deception. If she was still in this world, why did she not come to her after so many years? How could she bear to leave her alone? She did not believe that she had disappeared, so she had to find her. Now her heart was dead, and she had finally accepted this fact. "All right, me for extra chapters." Nan Changfeng did not ask her why. Perhaps this had become a habit. As long as she was willing to tell him, he would listen. If she were unwilling, then he would not ask more. Everyone had their secrets that they were not willing to tell, right? He believed that one day, the ninth emperor would tell him everything. He could wait for that day. Chapter 22-30. The past life 155. The ninth emperor gritted her teeth viciously as she thought of Di Ming. This was the first time Nan Changfeng saw the ninth emperor in such a state. A cold light flashed in his eyes but soon disappeared. In master manner, Di Ming stood within the courtyard, quietly looking at the lake in the distance. He smiled. The lake rippled just like his mood at the moment. Suddenly, a familiar scent came from behind him. He did not turn his back, but the smile on his face grew even wider. "You're here." His voice was deep as if he had known from the beginning that the ninth emperor would come. The ninth emperor looked at his back indifferently and asked, "How did you know I would come here?" "Not only did I know you would come, but I also knew you were coming to ask about your mother." He laughed, but the affection under those eyes was so obvious that it could not be hidden. "Other than that, I couldn't think of any reason for you to come to me. After all, every time," he was the one who tried every possible way to get close to her. And she had turned him away again and again. He could not think of any reason for her to come to him except about her mother. It's good that you know. She stared at Di-Ming darkly. Did you know early on that I would never find her again? Di-Ming closed his eyes. From the very beginning, he already knew that her mother would not come back. But he knew that no matter how he persuaded her, she would not believe, and even as always, she had to find her. Only when her mother told her personally would she accept it. Little Nine, after so many years, there is no need for you to keep looking for her. With your strength, if she was still there, would you not be able to find her? Precisely because she was no longer there, no matter what efforts she made, it was impossible to see her again. The Ninth Emperor clenched her fists tightly, and only after half a second did she let go. There is no way. I will never give up until I know that she is no longer here. No matter where she is now, I will find her. She had only given up looking for her whereabouts in this mainland, but that did not mean she had given up completely. She would continue to look, just not in this world anymore. Me for extra chapters. But the Ninth Emperor also understood that there was no way to find her now. Her mother also said that they would be able to meet later. So, where her mother was going, she would certainly follow as well. It was just that her mother was one step ahead. You do not just want to talk to me about this when you come to me today. Di-Ming finally turned around. His purple robe made him look more stunning. A faint smile grew on his handsome face. Di-Ming, the Ninth Emperor looked up at him. Do you know something? About my mother, and my birth father. Where exactly is she? And why did she leave without saying goodbye? And why didn't she take me with her? This was what she could not figure out so far. Even if it was more dangerous, it was better than leaving her in this place. But in the end, she still chose to leave without saying goodbye, leaving her with Mu Yi. Seeing that the Ninth Emperor was still asking, Di-Ming turned and looked at the lake not far away, silent. The breeze brushed the man's handsome face. He stood with one hand on his back, smiling helplessly. I can't tell you. He had made a promise. The Ninth Emperor sneered. What if I want to know? Di-Ming looked sideways at the Ninth Emperor calmly. The affection in his eyes was impossible to conceal. I'm sorry. I can't tell you. This was what he promised to that person. So no matter how Little Nine misunderstood him or how she pursued the matter, he would not say a word. If he did not keep his promise, he was not qualified to guard Little Nine. Little Nine, no matter what, I have to say sorry to you. I was the one who let Mu Qingya go in the first place. Mu Qingya knew this about him from somewhere, so much so that she threatened him with this matter. However, he must not let Little Nine know about that person's disappearance. This current matter has nothing to do with Mu Qingya, and you do not need to apologize to me. Mu Qingya cannot hurt me in the slightest. The Ninth Emperor walked closer to Di-Ming, with coldness in her eyes. I just want to know where she went. Whether she is still on the mainland or not. I just want to know her whereabouts. She did not have the intention to go to her now, however, one day, she would go to her side. Yet, Di-Ming refused to say anything. Now, the Ninth Emperor was certain that Di-Ming must know her mother's whereabouts. He also knew many things that she did not know. I don't have the right to tell you. If you want to know, Di-Ming narrowed his eyes. Evil light flashed in his eyes as he smiled. Wait. You will naturally know. There is no need to rush. When she left back then, she said that she did it all for her daughter. Therefore, they would definitely meet later. Me for extra chapters. The Ninth Emperor's face darkened. She raised her hand and tugged Di-Ming's lapel, dragging him closer fiercely. I cannot know her whereabouts. I cannot ask where she went. Then, I want to know, is she dead or alive? Is she fine? Her gaze turned cold. If you won't even tell me this, then I will beat you to death here today and let your people collect your dead body. Those guards were so scared that they were drenched in cold sweats. Their master's temper had always been bad, and he would often strike at people at the slightest disagreement, and his methods were ruthless. Now, a girl was pulling his lapel and claiming to kill him. What was even more surprising to the crowd was that Master D was not angry but instead had a smile on his face and a gentle gaze like water. I don't know. You don't know either. The ninth emperor frowned. What do you mean by that? How could you not know? I don't know. If she is still alive, you still cannot find her. She will not come to see you. If she is dead, Di Ming shook his head. She can't tell you that she's dead. Would they meet again in the future? If she had already died, then how could she meet her again? She loved little Nine so much. She could not possibly say the words to curse little Nine. So, he did not know whether she was dead or alive. Chapter 2232. The Past Life 157. The ninth emperor's fists gradually loosened, and she finally gave up. She knew that no matter how much she pressed, he would not tell her. I understand now. At this instant, the ninth emperor felt exhausted physically and mentally. She gently closed her eyes and slowly turned around, about to leave the manor. At this time, a man's voice came from behind her, somewhat reluctantly. Are you going to leave? He knew that the ninth emperor had come back this time only to find that person. Now that she already knew that person would not come back, perhaps she would not continue to stay in this place either. The ninth emperor faintly responded. There is no home for me here, so why should I stay? Di Ming was stunned. His throat was a little dry, but the words did not come in the end. What he wanted to tell the ninth emperor was that as long as she was willing to stay, then he, and this manor, would also be her home. However, he understood that even if he said that, it was useless. There was no way little Nine would stay for him, then. Can we still meet in the future? Di Ming sounded expectant. The ninth emperor's body stiffened. Meet again. There's no need for that, right? Many things had already passed. Back then, they were still young and had gotten along well for a while. But now that so much time had passed, they already had their own lives. Moreover, Di Ming had feelings for her. She had been pretending not to know it. When she was young, she thought she could maintain a friendly relationship by pretending not to know. Now that she had grown up, she naturally understood that this was not good for both of them. Therefore, this time she distanced herself from Di Ming. One because of her mother, the other was because she should no longer be near him. When she left, Di Ming would also have his life and would not always remember her. Di Ming, the ninth emperor, lowered her gaze. Her face softened. This was the first time in many years she spoke to him in such a gentle tone. We are different. So, in the future, we will also go our separate ways. Many girls in this kingdom are much better than me. You are not young anymore. It's time for you to get married. Di Ming raised his gaze in shock. His gaze fell on the ninth emperor. So, she had known it all along. Me for extra chapters. Yet, he thought she did not know anything, smugly thinking he was hiding it well. Was this the reason why the ninth emperor was now so indifferent to him? Di Ming smiled bitterly. If in the next life, he and little Nine could still meet, then, he would never let the ninth emperor find out again. As once she found out, she would stay away from him, and if they both left this world and met in the afterlife, all the emotions would be well hidden, never for her to find out again. Only in this way could he be by her side. Even if, as a friend, it was better than never seeing her again in the future. The Ninth Emperor's sleeves were slightly lifted in the wind as she stepped away and walked toward the front main gate. Di Ming looked a little lost in his thoughts as he stared at the Ninth Emperor's departing figure. It was as if he had gone back to more than 10 years ago. Back then, the girl was still young. As childhood friends, they constantly quarreled, but each time he would give in to her. He thought he could always do so. Who knew that later, she would disappear? Chapter 2233, The Past Life 158. No one knew how he spent those days when she was missing. Many times he even wondered if he had done something wrong. If he had told the Ninth Emperor about that person long ago, perhaps the Ninth Emperor would not have disappeared for so many years. Later, he realized that the Ninth Emperor would have left this place whether he told her about that person or not. And she did. Di Ming stared in the direction where the Ninth Emperor left for a long time and could return to his senses. His gaze filled with fondness and reluctance, until after she disappeared, he did not turn away. The sky gradually darkened. He was like a statue, standing in place without moving, allowing the breeze to brush his long hair. A pair of his evil eyes filled with an unspeakable sentiment. After leaving the imperial palace, the Ninth Emperor found Nan Chongfeng standing not far away, waiting for her. She greeted him with a smile. That smile was so bright. Let's go. What should be known, I already know. Di Ming had never wanted to tell me the rest of the story. Nan Chongfeng noticed that the Ninth Emperor was not in a good mood. Although she had a smile on her face, he noticed the gloom hidden behind that smile at a glance. Your mother, perhaps, it is difficult for me to find her. She had said that they would meet one day. However, whether it was for 1,000 years, or 10,000 years, no one could say clearly. That was why she was so lost. Nan Chongfeng raised his hand and pulled the Ninth Emperor into his arms. The Ninth Emperor froze for a moment and raised her eyes to look at the young man in front of her. The young man's embrace was somewhat warm, not quite the same as the previous ones, and even more different from the embrace of those girls in Cloud Mountain. It was also within this moment, her restless heart gradually calmed. She placed her hand on the young man's back, lowered her head, and smiled. Chongfeng. Back then, I always felt that she would still come back later even though she had left me. This time, I understand that there is no way for her to come back. She was very lost after she knew it. That feeling was like a hand tightly tugging at her heart. It felt so difficult that she nearly suffocated. Fortunately, Nan Changfeng's embrace calmed her. The bitterness in his smile also gradually disappeared. Don't worry. I will help you find her. Don't worry. I will help you find her. Me for extra chapters. As long as you want to find that person, I will do all that I can. I will definitely help you. The Ninth Emperor raised her gaze to look at the young man in front of her. That was the first time she saw this young man closely. Even though she loved beauty, she only brought back girls. However, this young man was an exception. She did not know why she had to bring him back. It was as if she did not bring him back, she would regret it. Chongfeng, the Ninth Emperor turned to Nan Chongfeng. Why did you want to come with me? Nan Chongfeng lowered his gaze and stared at the Ninth Emperor. A smile grew on his face. Because you said you would take me home. So, in the future, the place where you are is bound to be my home. The place where you are is bound to be my home. Wherever you go, I will follow you and go to you. I must live with you forever to protect you. At this moment, Nan Chongfeng still did not know that his words had turned into the aphorism, and not a day later, he would pursue the Ninth Emperor to her next life, until she returned, perhaps, this fate was already predestined. Since the day they met, there was no way to part them. Chapter 2234, The Past Life 159 Inch Changfeng. The ninth emperor looked at the young man in front of her and smiled. The smile warmed Nan Changfeng's heart, just looking at her improved his mood. This kind of pleasure was never there before knowing her. "I'm hungry," the ninth emperor said lazily, but there was a smile in those eyes. "So, let's go home." "Let's go home," Nan Changfeng smiled gently, raised his hand, and stroked the hair on the young girl's forehead. "All right. Let's go home. What do you want to eat today?" "Anything. As long as you cook it, I will eat it all, but it makes me wonder why Dongfang you and the girls are very dissatisfied with your cooking." This was something that the ninth emperor had always wondered about. Obviously, Nan Changfeng was such a good cook, yet he still did not satisfy Dongfang Yu and Tian Xian. Nan Changfeng lowered his gaze, hiding the coldness in his eyes. "Maybe they are too demanding. I can't do it to their satisfaction." He would never tell others that the one who cooked for Dongfang Yu and the girls these days was his snake. His cooking could only be tasted by the ninth emperor alone. As expected, after hearing this, the ninth emperor frowned. "They are asking too much. This is not good." Nan Changfeng's cooking skills were already so good, better than many famous chefs, but it still could not satisfy those two girls. It made her a little dissatisfied. "Let's go. I'll teach these two girls a lesson for you when we get back." The ninth emperor patted Nan Changfeng's head. At this moment, Nan Changfeng was just like a well-behaved little puppy. His silver hair lifted in the wind, making him look more stunning. "All right." Nan Changfeng smiled. "Let's go back." Before leaving, the ninth emperor took one last look at the gate and finally turned around with Nan Changfeng, heading in the direction of their home. Dongfang Yu had long been at the door to greet her, but who knew that after the ninth emperor saw her coming, they did not even glance at her when stepping into the courtyard. Dongfang Yu froze. She turned her head, gazing dumbly at the ninth emperor and Nan Changfeng walking together. "Dongfang Yu." Finally, the ninth emperor stopped and turned to Dongfang Yu behind her. "I heard that you are very unhappy with Changfeng." Dongfang Yu was speechless. When did this happen, and why did she not know about it? Me for extra chapters. You dislike the meals that he cooks. Are they not good? The taste is horrible, and only the ninth emperor can tolerate it. Wait, how did the ninth emperor know about this? She then turned to Nan Changfeng, bit her sleeve, and was on the verge of crying out. Vixen. Nan Changfeng was a vixen. He must have bewitched the ninth emperor. And now, the ninth emperor did not want them anymore. The ninth emperor would never question her like this before, let alone say such things to her. This was all because of Nan Changfeng. I don't want you guys to bully him in the future. After all, there are many of you, and he's just alone. After Dongfang Yu heard these words, she was aggrieved and wanted to cry even more. Who was bullying who? Nan Changfeng was not only a vixen, but he had also framed them. Ninth Emperor, we never bullied him. Dongfang Yu's eyes teared up. She glared at Nan Changfeng fiercely and turned to the ninth emperor pitifully. She wanted to cry out to let people know what was in her heart. Chapter 2235, The Past Life 160. The ninth emperor's heart softened, and she finally turned to Dongfang Yu. Good. Besides, Changfeng's dishes are so delicious. Dongfang Yu froze. Ninth Emperor, are you serious? Delicious. Why do I find it difficult to swallow? After saying that, the ninth emperor turned away with Nan Changfeng, leaving Dongfang Yu alone, staring dumbly at them, unable to return to her senses for a long time. it seemed that she could not figure out how unique the Ninth Emperor's taste was. Just because the person who cooked was Nan Chongfeng, she felt that it was not bad. Dongfang Yu stepped into the dining room that she would never walk into and saw the person cooking for them was a snake. Only later did she understand that it was not the Nine Emperor's unique tastes but that a snake had deceived them. Yet, Nan Chongfeng always stayed by the Ninth Emperor's side. Every time they secretly complained, that vixen always had something to retort, causing the Ninth Emperor to believe only him, never them. At night, the moonlight poured like water. The Ninth Emperor lay on the bed, frowning and her face a little pale. A young man slowly reached her bed and touched her eyebrow. Perhaps the young man's warm fingers made her relax. The young man sat quietly at the head of her bed, staring at her. He then moved closer toward her and closer. When the young man was close to the Ninth Emperor, the girl lying on the bed opened her eyes abruptly. Her eyes became stern, and in a flash, a punch almost landed on the young man's face. The young man dodged and fell to the ground. A few moments later, the bewilderment in the Ninth Emperor's eyes disappeared, and her eyes gradually lit up. She looked at the young man, frowning. "How did you sneak in?" Nan Chongfeng would usually leave immediately after warming her bed. It was the first time he snuck in, which made her a bit stunned and dumbfounded for a while. Nan Chongfeng smiled gently. "I heard you call me, so I came to see you, me for extra chapters." "I called him." The Ninth Emperor's face instantly darkened. She just had a dream, but did she call out to Nan Chongfeng? Why did she not remember it? The Ninth Emperor pursed her lips, her face slightly embarrassed. "Maybe you heard wrong. You weren't in my dream just now." "You weren't in my dream just now." Nan Changfeng's eyes turned cold, but soon the coldness disappeared, and his smile remained gentle like a spring breeze. Looking at this handsome face, the Ninth Emperor was stunned, and she gradually recalled the figure in her dream just now. The person in the dream was still a little different from Nan Chongfeng. Even though they looked similar, the feeling was not quite the same. However, the Ninth Emperor somehow felt that Nan Chongfeng and the one in the dream were the same people. "Then, who did you dream about?" he asked, constantly looking at the Ninth Emperor. "I dreamed that soon after we died." The Ninth Emperor's heart ached a little as she thought of that dream. "We met again in the afterlife." You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.